Have you ever thought about the invisible symphony surrounding you right now? Not just the sounds you can hear, but the signals coming from every device, the infrasound from traffic and machines, and the upgraded electrical grid. Could this invisible noise be causing harm to your mind and body? And if so, is there anything you can do to protect yourself and create healthier spaces for you and your loved ones? Well, that's what we're going to explore in this video. But first, if you're new, welcome. I'm Trill. I'm a conscious creator and a high vibe music artist. I'm all about sharing practical and spiritual insight to inspire and empower you to be the best version of yourself. With that said, let's dive in. Let me start by saying this. This video isn't about spreading conspiracy theories or demanding that you throw your iPhone into a desk. It's about taking an honest look at what we know, what we don't know, and how we might navigate the dark side of sound more consciously. The ancient world had a concept called sonic alchemy, which is the idea that sound and vibration could transform both matter and consciousness. And modern science has validated much of this. For example, we know frequencies can heal bone fractures, sound waves can break up kidney stones, and music can literally change brain chemistry. So I started thinking, if sound can heal, can it also harm? And if so, what kind of damage can sound cause? I'm going to share 3 stories, each with their own chilling conclusion. One about diplomats, one about bee colonies, and one about an entire community falling ill. The common thread between all of them implies that we may be missing something vital about the negative effects that sound can have. Havana, Cuba, 2016. American embassy workers start getting sick in ways that can't be explained. The symptoms are sudden and severe: headaches, nausea, and hearing problems. Some people describe their ears being flooded with high-pitched sounds that seem to come from nowhere. Others feel pressure in their heads, like they're underwater. Years later, several of them have still not fully recovered. Investigators ruled out the usual suspects: toxins, viruses, and psychological factors. What they eventually came to believe was that these were attacks by someone using directed energy weapons that fired harmful electromagnetic frequencies at the targets. Yes, I know it sounds sci-fi, but there's established research going back to the 1970s when the US Navy first documented what's called microwave auditory effects. Dr. Michael Persinger's work has shown that certain electromagnetic frequencies can create the perception of sound directly in the human brain. What's new is the idea that someone might be using this knowledge to deliberately hurt people. And this isn't the only incident. Similar cases have been reported at US facilities in China, Russia, and even allied countries. Over 200 American officials have been affected by what has come to be known as Havana syndrome. If this technology exists and is being used against diplomats, what else is out there that we don't know about? The military has been open about developing acoustic weapons. There's something called an LRAD, long-range acoustic device, that can project sound so intense it causes immediate pain and hearing damage from over a mile away. Police departments sometimes use these for crowd control. Then there's infrasound, frequencies below human hearing that can cause disorientation and nausea without people knowing what's happening to them. These frequencies can travel for miles and go right through walls. Now, I'm not trying to scare you, but I think it's worth acknowledging that we've moved into a world where sound can be weaponized in ways that would have been science fiction generations ago. But governments aren't the only ones who understand how frequencies influence people. Corporate America figured out that game decades ago. Walk into a McDonald's and you're experiencing what they call acoustic architecture. The music, the background frequencies, even the pitch of the cash registers are all designed to make you hungry, help you decide faster, and encourage you to leave sooner. Yeah, Mickey D's is manipulative, but casinos say, "Hold my milkshake." They use ambient frequencies to alter your sense of time and risk assessment, so you'll stay at the tables longer and lose money faster. But if fast food restaurants and casinos raise red flags for your accountant or your gastroenterologist, this next story is a 5-alarm fire for the entire planet. Hudson Valley, New York, 2020. The utility companies are sending electricians to people's properties to install smart meters, sometimes even without informing the owners. These devices monitor electricity usage and transmit data wirelessly. They're marketed as an upgrade, but what they don't tell you is that these devices emit electromagnetic frequencies continuously. Within a few short months, some rural communities started to witness something strange and alarming: the collapse of entire bee colonies. Bees navigate using Earth's magnetic field. When you flood their environment with artificial electromagnetic signals, especially in the 2.4 gigahertz range that these meters use, you're essentially jamming the bees' internal GPS. While the evidence isn't conclusive, many beekeepers have noticed correlations that warrant further study. Already we know that when you expose bees to mobile phone radiation, the same frequency range, they become disoriented and sometimes abandon their hives. We're talking about the insects that pollinate about a third of every food we eat. If this continues, it'll be catastrophic, which is why Albert Einstein said, "If the bees die, we all die." The companies installing these devices say they're safe because they don't generate enough energy to heat tissue. But that's a pretty narrow definition of safe. It's like saying a strobe light is safe because it doesn't burn your skin, while ignoring what it might do to someone with epilepsy. It only considers immediate thermal effects, not what chronic low-level exposure to potentially harmful frequencies might do to biological systems over time. Granbury, Texas, 2022. A massive factory is constructed on the edge of a small town just outside of Dallas. Within months of starting operations, the residents experience chronic headaches, sleep disturbances, and tinnitus, which is constant ringing in the ears. Kids at the local school are having trouble concentrating. The reason: the sound coming from the factory consistently exceeds 85 decibels, which is the peak amount that the human ear can safely hear. The factory is a Bitcoin mining operation that runs 24/7. Bitcoin mining requires huge amounts of electricity to run thousands of computers solving cryptographic puzzles. The facility that moved into this community was an industrial-scale operation that can power a small city. They claim they operate within regulation. However, those regulations don't account for what chronic low-level EMF exposure might do to sleep patterns, to human cells, and to our nervous systems. And this pattern is repeating around the world. Communities are becoming electromagnetic sacrifice zones for digital infrastructure, and the health effects are being dismissed until they become undeniable. And the worst part is that people don't even know they're a part of it. For thousands of years, humans understood that certain frequencies could heal. Ancient temples were built with specific acoustic properties, including, according to some people, the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau. Traditional cultures developed sophisticated systems of sound therapy that we're only now beginning to validate scientifically. But somewhere along the way, this knowledge got fragmented and/or corrupted. We're living through what some researchers call electromagnetic smog. In the last 30 years, we've gone from occasional exposure to radio waves to constant saturation with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell signals, and now 5G, which operates in millimeter wave frequencies, the same range that military crowd control weapons use. What's happening is that entire populations are being exposed to electromagnetic environments that didn't exist when our grandparents were young. We don't yet know the long-term effects, and the absence of data isn't proof of safety. Of course, not everyone agrees that EMFs pose significant risks. Many mainstream scientists point out that the evidence is still emerging and that regulatory agencies continue to consider current exposure levels safe. But I think it's worth noting that many of these safety standards were developed before our current level of ubiquitous exposure to these frequencies. Children today are growing up in environments that are fundamentally different from anything humans have experienced. Their nervous systems are being shaped by artificial frequencies rather than natural rhythms. we're seeing increases in attention problems, anxiety, and sleep disorders that all correlate with the introduction of new technologies. But because the effects are gradual and cumulative, it's easy to dismiss them as unrelated. What made me realize how dangerous this could be is when I thought about how our bodies are essentially electrical systems. Every heartbeat, every thought, every cellular process is electrical communication. Imagine trying to have a quiet conversation while someone's running a leaf blower next to you. That's what's happening to our cells in high EMF environments. Research published in journals like Environmental Health Perspectives has shown that certain frequencies can disrupt heart rhythms, interfere with melatonin production, and even cause breaks in DNA. And studies have found that sperm counts in developed countries have dropped by more than 50% since the 1970s. But individual health effects might be just one part of this. There's also the question of how chronic exposure to negative frequencies might be affecting us psychologically and socially. Earth generates its own electromagnetic frequency, called the Schumann resonance, that all life evolved with over millions of years. These natural frequencies help regulate circadian rhythms, immune function, and mental states. Artificial EMF pollution is drowning out these natural signals, disconnecting us from the electromagnetic environment that shaped our evolution, which may explain the rise in anxiety and depression. Every notification sound, every screen flicker, every vibration is conditioning our nervous systems to respond in specific ways. Social media platforms have perfected what psychologists call intermittent variable rewards, the same principle that makes slot machines addictive. But they've added frequency components through sound and haptic feedback that make the addiction even stronger. So what do we do with all this? First, I think it's worth getting better at paying attention to how different environments affect you. Do you get headaches in certain locations that go away when you leave? Do you sleep poorly in hotels or feel anxious in specific buildings? Do you notice that you feel different when you're camping or in places with minimal technology? Simple experiments can be revealing. Try turning off your Wi-Fi router at night and see if you sleep better. Try moving the router away from bedrooms, and if you can, use a wired internet connection. Spend a day with your phone in airplane mode and notice how you feel. But most importantly, actively restoring your connection to natural frequencies is key. Spend time in forests, near moving water, and in places with minimal technology. This can help reset your biofield and repair some of the stress from artificial and constant EMF exposure. Specific healing frequencies, when used correctly, can also serve as countermeasures. But be careful because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Now, this isn't about going back to a time without technology. Technology has brought us incredible benefits, but it's about using it more intentionally, understanding its effects, and creating spaces in your life where your nervous system can reset. I don't have all the answers. The science is still developing, and there's legitimate debate about many of these effects. But I do think we're living through a significant shift in human electromagnetic exposure, and it's worth paying attention to how that might be affecting us, individually and collectively. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, namaste.